In this video, I'm going to demonstrate a Columbia A. The Model A was an inexpensive machine marketed by Columbia, and it was actually introduced in 1896, and it was $25. So the prices at that time were coming down, and the machines were getting more popular. More of the public was able to access cylinder music. This would have been a 2-minute machine. What I have here is a Columbia N, the predecessor of this machine. So this was made a year or two earlier, and they made this until, I believe, 1901, and they made about 6,000 of these. I don't know how many of these they made, but they made probably a lot more. I've seen lots of these. They're fairly common. This was a really successful machine for Columbia. As you can see, things have changed in a couple of years. This was the first machine where it had this new arrangement where the reproducer carriage was here and the reproducer went up this way and the carriage went across from left to right with the mandrel stationary here. This machine, same orientation. The difference is, while this we call a bullet end, this was the only machine I believe that had this bullet-shaped mandrel. The mandrel on this, when we come in close, you'll see it just ends. The major difference is this part is cast. So this was all aluminum, probably required a lot of machining work. This one was cast. Again, that way they could lower the price and compete a little better on the market. These are nice. They look really good because the cast part here is black and then it's decorated with all these decals. And the early ones, the machine on the decal would have said Washington instead of New York. And those ones, the decal is a little different. I believe it has berries on it, a couple of little berries in there amongst all the flowers. This one here is a New York one, so it's a little bit later. When I demonstrate it, you'll notice that the key, the crank unwinds as it's playing. Both these machines are similar in that respect. They don't have a spring barrel, so the mechanism, the crank unwinds as it plays. So to accommodate that, they made the crank so that it would fall off and get out of the way. So this is a nice machine. The trunnion here and the trunnion here are very similar. Both these, because this is a little bit on the early side, this would have been brass machined and plated, just as this one would have been. A little bit different when in the details. But later they changed this part to pot metal. Pot metal was a type of material that was cheaper to cast and easier to cast. And unfortunately, they didn't realize it at the time. Over time, it's attacked, I believe, by the oxygen in the air, and it causes it to shrink and crack. And as a result, a lot of these machines, that part is broken, and that really makes it hard to get them to work properly. And this tube here would have also been later made out of pot metal, and that tends to crack. So if you're thinking of buying a machine like this, you really got to take a look at this part and make sure it looks pretty sturdy. And as I said, the earlier ones are machined, so they never have any sort of problems with expansion. I have seen in the past some Model A's and some of the later graphophones with this cast part where the casting actually starts to warp, and that can screw everything up. The mandrel can be slightly off and things like that. So these machines did have their problems. I've never seen that kind of problem with a Model N. These were better made, but they were more expensive and difficult to produce. And this was a mass market machine. And if you really think about it, most of the problems they had with this machine happened years later. So the life expectancy of this machine, the fact that it still works, or many of them still works over 100 years later, is pretty amazing. So why don't we come in for a close-up and take a look at some of the details. The lids on these machines are kind of interesting. They have these 2 pins on the bottom, and those pins fit in slots towards the back of the machine. So there's a right way and a wrong way to put the lid on. It has to go on this way. Oops. Had a little trouble here with the reproducer because this is a bigger reproducer. So I'll take that off. Try the lid again. There we go. There's the lid. And the way this works is you push this part over there, and then it's got sort of a locking mechanism. So it's a pretty sturdy, it has a pretty sturdy hold on the lid, but like all machines of this era, I would never lift it up by the handle because it's likely the lid is going to come off at some point. Other than the obvious difference of this black cast part on the top as opposed to the aluminum. You'll notice the gears are on the outside. They're not housed in any part of the machine, which makes it a little more noisy, cheaper to produce, obviously, because that was the goal of doing that. But it does make it a little more noisy. You can see here the decal. I love these Gramophone decals, and this one's really nice. And you can see it says New York. If I go over to here, you can see the earlier Columbia decal. Same decal, but it says Washington. So, nice machine. The color of these, that's one of the reasons I love them, is the color. Look at the orange on this machine. It's beautiful. There's the trunnion. You can see the graphics on the casting part are really good. And then there's the graphophone plate. I don't know if you noticed, but it says perfected graphophone. That's actually unusual. They don't usually say that. So this is a somewhat different ID plate. That's one of the reasons I have this machine, because when I saw that, I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. So I'm guessing that's from it being earlier. Well, let's give this one a try. You'll notice there's no end gate on this one. So the cylinder just fits right over. We're on the N. If you look over here, there's an end gate to hold the other end of the mandrel. Similar to Edison's machines. They had end gates for the first while. So what am I going to play on this machine? I got something unusual. I got to tell you, it's a very early Beatles cylinder, From Me to You. Yeah. You didn't know the Beatles had cylinders back then, right? No, what this is, it's a cylinder I made up. I made the box myself. Well, I took a regular box and I made the graphics for it and glued it on. That's from an original Edison cylinder. And then I made this graphic using the original 45 RPM vinyl record cover. So what I did was I transferred the record of the Beatles onto this cylinder. And I chose this tune because it's a 2-minute tune and this is a 2-minute machine. So let me set this up and we'll give it a try. Give me a second here. Okay, I've wound it up. I took the crank off. Ready to play the cylinder. Keep in mind that it's not a great recording. I transferred it onto this cylinder. I shaved a moldy cylinder and put this on it. And the speed on this machine seems to be giving me some trouble. It's going too fast and too slow. It's just too fussy. But let's give it a try. Let's see what we can get. There we go. I think I got it about right.